This one drives me crazy. Now look, every founder knows that differentiation is important. It is, after all, basically the reason that you're going to get picked instead of your competitors. Simple. And so, because of that, every brand and founder also loves to tell you just how different they are. They won't shut up about it. But here is the thing. When you press them on it and you ask them to show you the proof that they're different, the facts behind it, what do you hear? Crickets. You see, most businesses, they don't understand the first and only rule of differentiation, which is if you want to say that you're different, you've got to do something different. Sounds obvious, but people miss it. But okay, look, to be fair to them, it isn't that easy. It can be hard to come up with truly original and practical ideas that put daylight between you and the rest of the pack, stuff people haven't thought of before. Sometimes it feels like there just aren't any options. It's like everything that can be done has been done. Well, trust me, it hasn't. And in this video, I'm going to prove it, and I'm going to make it easy for you by showing you 9 different types of innovation which you can apply to your business today, along with some super clear and cool examples of famous brands that are nailing each one of them. You see, the problem, I think, is that when people think about differentiation and innovation, their mind tends to immediately go to product features. There are actually 8 other forms of differentiation which they're leaving totally unexplored, which might frankly be far easier and far more meaningful for a business like yours. So let's not mess around, let's get into it. Now let's start with the obvious. The first one, like I said, product features. Now this is pretty self-explanatory. It's just about adding or removing bells and whistles from your product. And there are infinite examples of this, but one that I absolutely love is the Ford Bronco. Now in recent times, Ford have done some amazing strategy work where rather than being this very broad, generic kind of what are they all about car company, they've actually focused in on one value offering that they're making their own, which is essentially pure American muscle in the form of focusing on SUVs, commercial vehicles and trucks, and to some extent muscle cars like the Mustang and things like that. Now, one of their flagship vehicles, their flagship SUV, is the Ford Bronco, which they wanted to make the most outrageous and fun off-road vehicle on the market. And in order to do this, what have they done? They've packed it with forms of really true innovations which their competitors don't have and which the customer can't miss, and just makes the product totally wild. So you see this car and you think, damn, that is just like the pinnacle of off-road vehicles. This is a basic example of product feature innovation and product feature differentiation. This is the kind of low-hanging fruit for doing this job that you would naturally gravitate to if you have a product-based business like a car or something like that. But look, for service businesses where they don't have a physical product to tinker with, frankly, this one is much harder. And that's why most of them are totally undifferentiated, because they think in terms of product differentiation, and then because they don't have a product, they don't really know what to do. So they would be much better served with some of the other ideas on this list. Like, for example, number 2, production method. Now, this isn't so much about what your product is, but it's about how you actually make it. Can you put it together in a different way that makes it cheaper, faster, or more consistent? Now look, a great example of this, the legendary example, is McDonald's. This is the game that they played. Now I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Founder, but it laid it out really well, all about how Ray Kroc went into this burger joint and, to all intents and purposes, systematized the production of their burgers so that not only could they do it much more quickly and efficiently and cheaply, but they could also have a model where instead of just having 1 or 2 burger restaurants where it's hard to maintain the quality, they could have hundreds or even eventually thousands of the buggers, and where you knew that wherever you went in the world, you were going to get the same product at the same speed in this hyper consistent way. Now, with this form of differentiation, the customer might not even actually notice what you're doing different under the hood. Maybe to them, it's just a burger. But what they should notice is the benefits that come to them because of that improved method. And in the case of McDonald's, there were lots. Okay, form of innovation and differentiation number 3 is the routes to market. Now, maybe your product is kind of generic, fine, but what you're going to do here is you're going to distribute it to customers in a different way, maybe via a different delivery method, or maybe just giving it to them in a totally different context. Now, arguably, this was Red Bull's killer move. What made them so cool was not the stuff they put in the can, so much as where the can turned up So we all know about their sponsorship of extreme sports events, the X Games, stuff like that. But they obviously took it to a whole nother level where they thought, well, what is the ideal sort of event where we would like people to drink our products and associate our products with? And they went out and made those events. They invented entire new sports, effectively just to create events where they could distribute their product. This is why we all believe and are inspired by the Gives You Wings message, because of where they've associated their product with, where they've chosen to distribute it. You want to ask, where do products like yours not show up currently, but could? And then think about how you can put your product out there into that area and get people to think about your category in a whole different way. Number 4, service bundling. Simple, this one. Take 2 generic, undifferentiated things, bundle them together, sell them together, stick them together, and create this new thing. Now, Peloton did this brilliantly. Exercise bikes, home gym hardware like that existed already, as did home gym software like apps and videos showing you how to work out. What no one had ever really done before at any scale, however, was to put 2 things together where they sold you the hardware with the software and with the content bundled in. This was an absolutely fantastic idea, which obviously, even though Peloton probably overcooked it, after a while, it did still create one of the fastest growing brands in the world. Now, with this one, you probably already have a generic thing in your business, I'm guessing. So really, probably all you have to do is think of another generic thing which is complementary to it, which you can add, put them together, and create this whole new offer. Number 5, branding. Now look, normally I wouldn't allow this as a form of differentiation because obviously all brands are different to some extent, but that doesn't mean that they really count as a true form of differentiation. The only exception comes when your presentation is just so wildly different from the rest of your category that it truly sort of alters the landscape. Now, very, very few brands have the courage to do this, frankly, probably including you. So it's one of the hardest techniques on this list. But if you want to know what it looks like, one of the great examples, of course, is Liquid Death. Liquid Death did their branding, packaging, and presentation so differently from the norms of the bottled and canned water category that it truly counted as a meaningful form of differentiation. It was a genuine innovation in their space, even though it really just came down to sort of words and pictures. You know, that whole category is all about being sort of pure and life-giving and youthful and clean and innocent, all the stuff that we sort of associate with water. And so when Liquid Death came along with a brand that was essentially about the opposite of all of those things, damn it, it stood out in a way like no business has ever stood out before. So I think that we can all agree that when you see a Liquid Death on the shelf next to Evian or Volvic or someone like that, it is truly a differentiated product. But look, please don't kid yourself with this one. Don't just give yourself a get out of jail free card because you've got a slightly prettier brand and you're calling that differentiation. No, you have to push things way further than that. Number 6, targeting. Now, occasionally your differentiation can come not so much from what you do as who you do it for. Is there a new discrete audience that no one's ever really put their finger on before, that no one's ever really noticed before or bundled together before, that you can serve in your industry? Now look, someone who I think did this brilliantly was Justin Welsh. I don't know if Justin Welsh came up with the concept of solopreneurs, one-person businesses, but he certainly popularized the idea. He gave out sort of fairly generic kind of like business marketing advice. So in that respect, it was kind of undifferentiated. But what was different is that he did it in particular for solopreneurs, this group of people that had never really been properly served or articulated. And the second that he started talking about solopreneurs, anyone who was in that camp immediately knew that was them. And what do you know? He is the only person serving this discrete group of people. So of course, a lot of them bought from him and he earned a lot of money without having to necessarily do a hell of a lot. Pretty brilliant. So what is a real existing coherent audience of people in your category that no one has put a label on yet? How can you cut the people in your category differently in a way where they would recognize themselves in it, just like the solopreneurs? That can be a great form of differentiation if you start calling out and serving those people. By the way, a quick one, if you're liking this resource, I've got 20 others just like it in my no bullshit strategy toolkit. It's totally free. It's basically like a founder's second brain, and the link is right down there in the description, so make sure you grab that before you go. Now, back to the list with number 7, customer experience. Right. I love this one because you see, it's the one that most businesses lie about. Most businesses say that this is the thing that makes them different. Oh, you know, what makes us different is that we have such fabulous customer service, da 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 da. We've all heard it a million times before. But when you press them on this and you say, all right, cool, so what precise physical difference enables that enhanced customer service? What do you know? They have nothing to say. They just say something like, oh, well, we care more or something, which doesn't count. I mean, that's just like backing up one claim with another claim. Where's the fact? Now you want to compare that to Octopus Energy, a UK energy company. They also claim to have superior customer service, but in their case, they can actually back it up. For example, if you go and look on their website, what you'll find is a phone number. Already, compared to the other energy suppliers in the UK and probably in most of the world, that is a pretty radical innovation and something very, very different than what the competitors have. But where it goes even more crazy is that if you phone that number, a person just picks it up and talks to you without even there being any of those push button menus in between. I mean, hell, with the other suppliers, you might have to sit on the phone for an hour, 2 hours before you can get to speak to someone. But nope, with them, it's just like phoning up your mate and there they are and they are empowered to serve you. That is insane levels of genuine innovation that is actually delivering on that promise of better customer service and better customer experience. That is the kind of benchmark you need to set for yourself if you were going to try and own this territory and outperform your competitors in it. What hard, factual innovation can you put in place that would yield such an insane chasm of difference? All right, number 8 is pricing. And look, there are lots of innovative ways to price your products, but most of us never even think about them. A classic example of this is the freemium model, which we're familiar with from a lot of apps, but it's obviously what, for example, gave Spotify global dominance over the music streaming market. They had the idea of, hey, maybe we could just give unlimited music, all the world's music, to people for free. Pretty crazy. But obviously they made it a bit inconvenient. They filled it with ads and little annoyances and stuff like that. So pretty soon people were happy to pay $9.99 or whatever it was originally in order to get their music in a more smooth way. Have you ever wondered if something like this would work in your category? Alex Hormozy, he has this great little thing that he once said, where he said a good tactic was to basically take the thing that everyone in your category is selling for money and actually just give it away completely for free, undercut them completely, and then just charge for some sort of follow-up services, which is actually a pretty cool idea because obviously you are going to completely destroy all of those other companies that are charging for this thing that you are now giving for free, but you're still finding a way to monetize. This is what I mean about doing creative forms of pricing. Finally, we come to number 9, company culture. Instead of focusing directly on how you can make things different for your customers, how can you make things different for your team instead? Now, this is especially important if you want to attract a particular type of person to work for you. So for a long time, this was a key strategy for Google. Back in the day, if someone worked for Google, you think, oh my goodness, they must be really smart. And a lot of that came down to the cultural conditions they set up that did attract the best and brightest talent. Another great example is Patagonia. Patagonia want to attract people who love outdoorsy pursuits because they want people to share their passion and to sort of pour their expertise and their experience into their product and the whole experience of the business. How do they do that? Well, one of the things they did was this idea of surf time, where basically if the waves near their office were really good, they would actually start work later so that everyone could go out and have a surf, something which no other company was doing. But you can see how this helped them attract the sort of person that was going to make Patagonia this elevated, true aficionados brand. So if you want to do this for yourself, you just basically need to start with your perfect employee archetype and then work backwards from what would truly turn them on and just design your organization around that. So do you see just how many options you have to do something truly radically different? It's not that hard. There really is no excuse. And look, just one important note for you here before you go is that you got to be careful not to just be different for the sake of it. There needs to be a purpose to your difference. It needs to create genuine new value for the market. And if you want to understand that, make sure you check out this video right here. Put the concept of this video and that video together, and then you are going to be playing the most elite game of all.